Okay, so if you guys know me, I do drone repairs for people, and this one is the Hubsan Mini SE, and this one came to me from Canada. This person had a little mishap. They had a crash where they snapped the front leg on it, and then also during this crash, the side of the gimbal, just the cover has come off. All the wires, everything is good with that, so it still works. But you do want to have that cover on to protect the wires, and that's just not a part that you can buy. You can't find this part anywhere. You really can't find very many parts for this drone at all. You can't even find the replacement legs. So here's what we're going to do to repair this and get this back in the air for this person. I have the leg from a Hubsan Zino Mini Pro, so obviously you can tell the difference there is the color, but that is the only difference. They're the same motors, everything is the same. It's just a different color. So we're going to make a little bit of a Frankendrone here, but again, this is all just to get the person back up in the air and flying. And once it's up in the air, you can't see that anyhow. I could have probably chose to spray paint this white, but it's just going to scratch eventually, and you'll see that gray, and it'll look even worse in my opinion. So I explained to the person this is the only option I have, and they sent it to me from Canada, so I will fix it for them. And then fortunately I have spare camera stuff, so I do have the side plate that's missing, which I can just snap off and replace. So I'll be able to get this drone repaired and fully functional back for this person. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So the Zino Minis are very easy to work on. All the mini drones are very easy to work on. I've worked on the Femis, the DJIs, and the Nanos, and these Hubsan Minis, and they're all very simple to work on. So to take it apart, we want to take the top cover off. We're just going to remove these two screws and these two screws here. So a total of 4 screws will take that top cover off. And then since this is a front arm, it has an antenna, and the antenna plugs in the bottom. So we'll have to take this bottom plate off as well. But let's first just take the top off. And for that, you just need a Phillips head screwdriver. None of the screws on these, they're all like an aluminum screw, so they're not magnetic. So you'll just unscrew these, and if I can get there we go. You'll just unscrew them, and then when it flips over, they usually fall out. But be careful not to flip it over and drop them on the floor. So unscrew these. And then you're just going to get your fingers under the shell and snap it off. This one came off easy because I've already had it off once before. The first time you're going to have to pull and pry a little bit harder than that. So you'll see the screws have all fallen out. Let's push them all aside. Don't want to lose those. And then we're going to have to take this spring socket out, and you'll see the wire comes around here and then solders right here, green, blue, and yellow. But the hardest thing about this is the glue. All this glue that they put in there is very hard to remove. So that's where you'll probably see me cut the video and fight that for about a half an hour to get that glue out. The rest of the repair is very simple. But let's go ahead and take this out. We'll save the antenna for last. These screws here are a little bit shorter, so just kind of put your stuff in separate piles. I always just put the screws with the components that they go with. And I need a small screwdriver just to pop this. And then take it out. So when we put it back in, we'll be turning it left. It's spring loaded. And just set that with the screws that go with it. So I can take this part out. That's the broken portion of the arm. And then now we have to contend with all the glue, but I'm going to go ahead and unsolder these 3 wires here first. Get some tweezers so I keep my big nubby fingers out of the way. And let's start with the yellow here. And I'm not going to zoom in. You really don't, I mean, you just need to see it goes on those 3 pads. But let's unsolder that. I think I need to turn my heat back up because it was sitting. Yes. Give that a second and it'll heat back up in just a matter of seconds here. Clean up my tip. Always want a nice clean shiny tip on there. But let's go ahead and see if it's hot enough now. One. So that's the yellow. Now let's do the blue. And the green. Okay, so those are all done. Real easy. But like I said, the glue is the hard part. So all the wires just snap in these little tracks. So we'll pull them out and then we get to the glue. So I'm gonna have to take what I use is this is actually a medical grade set of a razor to cut your body parts open when they're doing surgery, but I'm going to do surgery on the drone with it. So basically I just score the glue and try to get it to come loose. So I'm going to do all this and fight getting all this glue out. And but basically what I'm doing is I'm just going to cut on both sides of the glue, and then the glue should come out with the wire. And then I've got it all up in here too that I have to cut away. So I'm going to cut all this away, cut this part out of the video, because like I said, this is probably going to take me about 30 minutes by itself. And you don't want to sit there through that. So let's go ahead and do all that, and then I'll cut back in. Real quick, just want to show you one thing you can do is you can heat the glue up. Because you don't have to worry about damaging the wires since we're not going to be using this. But you can heat that glue up to soften it. Just don't want to melt the actual drone parts. So this does seem to be working better. Yeah, that works a lot better. And then I can clean all the glue out of here. So that makes it a lot faster. I've never tried that before, but I don't generally like to do that because it gets the glue all over my soldering tip and it stinks too. Let's see if we can do it again right here. Just melt it a little bit. And I'm pulling pretty tight on these wires at the same time. Be careful, don't want to hit and damage anything else. These are pretty fragile inside. A lot of glue. Okay, I've got most of that out, except for underneath where it's hard to get to. Where the antenna is. So I'm going to wait on this one. Let's go ahead and unhook the antenna, clean all that glue off my tip. So let's flip it over and get to the antenna. The antenna is going to run down here and plug in the back. So unscrew this. We're going to unscrew 1, 2, 3, 4 screws here. I don't think I have to take that off. I'm pretty sure I don't. Well, I will eventually because there's some plugs here that I'll have to plug back in. So we'll go ahead and take that off too. So these 4 screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's go ahead and take this part off so we can get to these plugs. That's 3 screws. And these screws are, like I said, they're not magnetic, so you can use tweezers. Be very careful. Remember what size they are. This is a very small screw right here. And then we can remove these. These are longer. Keep them all together. And then we can undo this. It just sits over top of it. And then you can see there's a plug right here. And this one doesn't have the plug there. The Pro has a plug there. The SE does not. So I'm just going to simply unplug it with my tweezers. And then when we take this bottom plate off, we'll be good to go. Let's remove those screws. Keep everything together. Keep your screws with the parts that they go to. That's usually the best way I can explain it to you. And then these other ones are buried, so they'll come out when I flip it. And put them aside. So now this just lifts right off. A little bit of the heating gel in there to absorb the heat, but there's your wire, your antenna wire, and it goes to a very tight space down in the side. So again, I take my tweezers and I unplug it. You can take the board out, but I don't recommend doing that because anytime you take these boards out and stuff, you have all this other stuff that plugs in. So I'll show you how I do it. But it goes down through this little side hole here, and we're just going to kind of finesse that. So I'm going to start pushing it through. You can see it popping through the side. And basically I'm going to, sometimes you get lucky, but I'm going to let's get this glue off of it so it's not as big. But you just got to kind of spin it until you find it goes in the hole properly. There it came out real easy. Normally it's not that easy. But tiny little hole, slide that back through when you're done, when you're reassembling. And now we can go back to trying to get this baby all out of here. So we're going to probably heat it all back up again, but let's see if I can kind of force this a little bit since I've broken most of it loose. No, it's going to need heated up some more with the soldering iron. Okay, so I have these all cleared out to where hopefully the wires will fit. So let's go ahead and put in this arm, and we'll feed the antenna and everything through. So let's first just bring it through the first portion here. Tweezers are always good, just to kind of grab these little wires. Just make it easier for you there. Flip it the right way, obviously. So let's feed that arm in and get our little socket here. Now I always take these arms, try to take these arms fully open and put everything back. Okay. And then we're going to turn this spring-loaded joint to the left. Now this is where it gets hard on camera to do these things, but we'll do our best here. So I've got the 2 screws for that. And one way to do it is just simply take a pair of pliers, and turn it, and then try to get your screw in there. I can't show you on camera, obviously. It's very hard. Let's go ahead and set the screw in first and see if I can still turn it. Oh, that screw gets in the way. Okay. Now let's see if we can get it started. Don't want to force it until you have this fully in where it should be, because you don't want to strip these plastic holes. Okay. And the other screw. Just screw that down in there. And just snug them up, because if you keep turning, you will strip out the plastic holes. So let's make sure it works. And it's working. Very good. Now I do see that the frame here is slightly cracked. I can do a little plastic weld down in here and fill that in. I don't know if you can see it, but I can do a little plastic weld, but this will be perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and feed our wires. Let's go with the antenna wire first. It's got to go the furthest, so let's just first get it. Let's concentrate on getting it in that track and down through there. Take my tweezers, push it in, and there we have it. And see if we can slide it. Into place, and that's where it's going to belong, right there. So now we have to go down through this hole, feed it down through that hole, and that's, like I said, that's always the hardest thing. See if we can get it to, oh, look at that, she just came right through. Doesn't usually go this easy when you're on camera, but today is my lucky day. So let's bring it around, and I like to just go ahead and plug it in first, and then tuck it where it needs to be. So you just simply snap it, the apex back in place, and then run the cable around and tuck it into the spots where it belongs to hold it in place. So when you put the cover back on, we're not pinching these kind of wires. And then we want to make sure that we're clear of our little binding button, which we are. So everything's good there. And the antenna's in place. So antenna is nice and secure. You can glue that in place if you like. They hold just fine without glue. Now let's bring these wires. You can see this is all very easy, and that the glue was actually the hardest part. So what we're going to do is just kind of take my fingernail and tuck these wires in as we go, because my tweezers are a little sharp. I could use a screwdriver or Phillips to try to get them in there. You don't want to break the insulation on all these wires. Come on. There's one. There's two. There's three. Get them in over here. I don't want them pushed up against that damper. Yellow one's being stubborn. There we go. So they're all tucked in. Nice and secure. Get them tucked in here. And they'll probably pop back out while I'm doing this. And then the last one here, I'm going to wait until after I get them soldered because I don't want the wires to be tight. So if you look over here, you've got blue, yellow, green, black, red, yellow. And then here, it's going to be, white, black, red, white. It's going to be white, black, red. So here it was the blue and the yellow that were reversed. So it's green, blue, and yellow. So your yellow and your blue are opposite of this up here. So it's always good that you take pictures before, and then that way you know exactly what you're doing. So let's go ahead and start with this one, and then we'll do that one and that one. So the first one we're going to do is our green. Let's get a hold of it. We should be okay not to have to add any more flux or solder. It should be enough on the wires to just put it back where it belongs. Clean up my soldering iron here. Grab that green. Tiny wires. And solder it in place. And I probably have to heat up my soldering iron again because it's cooled down. It did stick, but it's not the way I want it. Let that heat up. We should be good now. Back up to 800 degrees. There we go. This is going to work now. Get that soldered in place on that wire. And now the blue wire. And now the yellow wire. Sometimes this does feel like surgery. So tiny. Ugh. Come on. And done. So now let's just tuck all these wires in place where they belong. And we're not going to use a super heavy hard glue that they use. We'll use something a little different, which hopefully I've got some that's not dried up because I haven't used it in a while. Okay, so they're all tucked in, and I'm going to do that green wire a little more. Grab and wiggle the wires, make sure they don't come loose. And then we're going to just fold them. Hold them right here and fold them out of the way. Like that. So that way when I put the cover back on, they are not going to get pinched or anything. So now, let's put something back in to hold these wires in their tracks. Hopefully this isn't dried up. But this is it's just an electronic grade silicone that I'm using. And I'll put that on there. and let that dry. And if you ever have to do a repair after me, you'll find it so much simpler because I don't use things like a hard, heavy glue that they use. There we go. So we're going to let that dry, and we can start to put together. We can put the bottom back on, and then also the last thing I'm going to do, I can do it right now actually, just show you. So here's how it sits. This is how these cameras set in the drone, and I need this side here. Hold the gimbal and grab from back here, and this will unsnap just like that. Let's fold the arm out of the way so I can do this. Try to keep you in camera view. But like I said, this is not a part that you can buy anywhere. If these fly off, you want to try to dig through the grass or wherever you're flying and find these babies, because you're not going to replace this. You're not going to be able to buy this part. I just happen to save everything that I get, and I happen to have it. So back in business with that gimbal. Real simple fix. And let's turn it over and hopefully not make a mess with our solder. It's gonna get a little on there, but with my gel, hopefully it doesn't make too much of a mess there. But put the bottom back on. Like so, and then we'll plug that back in. But let's get our screws. Longer screws in the front. Shorter screws in the back. And then you want to be careful plugging these things back in. Just kind of wiggle them around till you feel it fall into place, and just it'll click. I think you could hear it click. So now we just put the cover back on. And we have the small screw in the back. Don't over tighten. These aluminum screws will snap right off. And then I messed up. I put my screws in the wrong place. Take two. Lift this off. Try to keep screwing it. These screws actually go right here. Sorry. Mistake. Oh, these screws are tiny. All right, so these longer screws go up here, and these two holes here, not up here. I've made that mistake several times, putting these back together. Okay, those are in. Now we can put this on, tighten up this back tiny screw, and then put the longer screws in the front. Oh, my stomach's growling. I apologize. It's lunchtime. So all the screws are back in. Everything's snapped in. Sensor, everything should work fine. This stuff here needs to dry, but we can go ahead and just put it back together. It will eventually dry. So let's grab our top. and slide it down. You just want to be mindful, make sure all your wires are nice and neat and not sticking out. You can spread it, you can pull it like this when you put it over the wires, bring it down, and just kind of go around and make sure everything is lined up. Snap it where all the joints are. And everything is good there. And then put screws back in. So these 4 screws are all the same size. And then we'll power this baby on and make sure that I'd had a successful fix. Put new props on it and send it back to Canada. This is not a hard repair if you want to attempt it yourself. But like I said, parts are the hard thing. So keep in mind, I fix drones for people. And you can send me your drone. And I will not charge you too much money to do these repairs. My goal is to get you back up and flying. And I don't charge a lot for my time. Now, one thing you'll notice on the Zino Mini Pro, they do not put a screw here. You see there is a screw in this arm. And I think that is because of weight. The weight on the Zino Mini Pro needs to be cut back, so they have taken out any little screws that they can possibly remove. So if you look here, we have a screw here, and then we have a screw here, just like that. But in the Mini Pro, you do not have that screw. So I'm going to take these screws from the old arms and replace them in the Mini Pro arms. Obviously, they're really not needed because they're not in the Mini Pro. But we'll do it just to keep it the same. Oh, the screws are terrible. These ones are magnetic, but they're so hard to get started and in there. Okay. And then this one, I should be able to get in there. Yeah, I think for weight, on the Mini Pro, they took them off. So they obviously hold together, but I think they might make the leg a little weaker. I can't get this one on without fumbling, sorry. Come on. I'm going to throw it across the room here in a minute. There we go. So I don't know how well you can see that, but there's 2 screws there, just like here. So now we're nice and balanced. That's all in. These are all these screws are done. The gimbal, like I said, that's fixed. And we're going to put new props on it, and we're going to fire it up and see if she will fly. But I'll just fire it up here on my desktop for you guys to see. So be right back after I change these props. Okay, so I've got one of my Zino Mini Pro batteries in it, but let's power it on. I want to turn it so I can just make sure the gimbal's doing what it should do, which you won't be able to see, but gimbal's fine, working fine. And let's put this right here, connecting to the controller as we speak. Connected. And it says battery has large deviation, please recharge, but it's 55%, so I'm leaving it alone. And then I'm going to go into my app and I'm going to disable GPS safe takeoff. That way I can start it here with 0 satellites in the house. So let's fire this baby up, see if everything's working. There you go. These props are turning in the directions they're supposed to, so everything looks good. So I'll give it a test flight and send this baby back to Canada to its happy owner. I want to thank everybody for watching. Hopefully this is something you can do, but if not, you can always send it to me and I can repair it for you. You can just email me at qcguy.chris@gmail.com. And hopefully this is something that has helped you out. The problem with doing tutorials is they will help somebody out and then you'll never see that person again. But I do hope, since I've taken the time to do this, that you'll at least take the time to subscribe to my channel, come interact on my live streams, and enjoy the things we do on my channel. So with that being said, thumbs up on your way out, and again, please subscribe and hit that bell for notifications of future content to come, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace and love.